Today is going to do the second mystery box. So let's see what we have for packs this time around. So this time it looks like we have two of the Time Spiral Remastered. Um, Again, we got the two Itali Primal Storms, like we did in the last mystery box. We got Dominion, and then we got two of the Insurart Midnight Hunt. So, kind of looks very similar. Last one, I think, instead of the second time spiral, it was uh, Ravnica Alliance or something. So, the time spiral has had the cardboard thing around it in an attempt to not have people try to steal the cards or um, maybe to avoid repackaging. Okay, we have Simeon Spirit Guide. It's a 2/2 creature and ape spirit for 2 and a mound. Exile Simeon Spirit Guide from your hand, add a mound. So, I mean, I guess if you were really hard up for mana, not playing a creature to use it as a mana could, in certain circumstances, be helpful. Um, Veiling Oddity. It's a 2/3 creature, an illusion for 3 in an island. Has Suspend 4, 1 in an island. The reminder text says rather than pay this card from your hand, you may pay 1 in an island and exile with 4 time counters on it. At the beginning of your upkeep, remove a time counter. When the last is removed, cast it without paying its mana cost. It has haste. When the last time counter is removed from Veiling Oddity while it's exiled, creatures can't be blocked this turn. So, I mean, the Suspend mechanic was kind of interesting in the way that it was normally, hey, pay less than the normal mana cost, but we're going to delay when the spell resolves. Yes, there's a way of removing counters, but then you're potentially paying mana to remove the counters instead of paying the normal cost. So I guess unless you're getting a benefit from paying the suspend cost, you're it's kind of a wash at that point. In this case, when the last counter is removed, creatures can't be blocked. So, if you had something for 2 to remove counters, then it'd more or less be the same casting cost as up here, but then it kind of make your creatures unblockable. Brute Force. It's an instant for a mountain. Target creature gets +3/+3 until end of turn. Corpulent Corpse. It's a 3/3 creature, a zombie for 5 in the swamp. Has fear. The reminder text is this creature can't be blocked except by artifact creatures and or black creatures. Has a suspend 5 cost of swamp. Rather than cast this card from your hand, you may pay a swamp and exile with 5 time counters on it. At the beginning of your upkeep, remove a time counter. When the last is removed, cast it without paying its mana cost. It has haste. So obviously 6 is a high mana cost, or 1 and waiting 5 turns if you don't have a way to remove time count, to remove counters. 5 turns might be a long time to wait. But it's a 3/3 that has fear, so it's unblockable unless your opponent has an artifact creature or a black creature. So maybe a little bit of a trade-off. Black sometimes has a way of punishing you, but usually they have a way of punishing you by saying lose life or discard a card or sack a creature. And this time it's more just like balanced in the sense of its mana cost or waiting a certain amount of turns. Thrill of the Hunt. It's an instant for a forest. Target creature gets +1/+2 until end of turn. Has a flashback cost of a plains. The reminder text says you may cast this card from your graveyard for its flashback cost, then exile it. Thin Grophage. The 3/3 creature, a zombie for 2 swamps. At the beginning of your upkeep, if tap Sandograve unless you pay 2. So, this is kind of the black's way of punishing you. I was talking about earlier. You're forced to tap this creature or pay 2 life to, yeah. So, kind of could go either way. Shade of Trocaire. It's a 1/2 creature, a shade for 3 in the plains. You can tap plains to have Shade of Trocaire get +1/+1 until end of turn. And where it's, you're paying a plains, you're not tapping anything other than the plains. You could pay that however many times you have the mana to do it. This suspend 3 and a plains. Rather than cast this card from your hand, you may pay a plains and exile with 3 time counters on it. At the beginning of your upkeep, remove a time counter. When the last one's removed, cast it without paying its mana cost. It has haste. So, you're either paying 3 generic and a plains to have it enter this turn, or just paying a plains and waiting 3 turns if you're not removing counters with, another card. Glitter Ilcore. It's a 1/1 creature, a core rogue for 1 and a island. Has shadow. The reminder text says this creature can't be creature can block or be blocked by only creatures with shadow. When Glitter Ilcore deals damage to an opponent, draw a card, then discard a card. So, I remember Fear. I don't so much remember Shadow. But, there are a lot of mechanics out there that try to be like unblockable except in certain circumstances. So fear on that black card, shadow on this card. There was horseman or horsemanship or something. Um, and I'm sure there's a bunch of others that I'm just not recalling at the time. Errant Doomsayer. It's a 1/1 creature, a human rebel for 1 in a plains. Tap target creature with toughness 2 or less. So you could use this guy to have an opponent's 1/1 Death Touch guy be tapped, so you can then attack with your, 5/5 and not have your 5/5 die to a 1/1 just because it had Death Touch. I mean, like, certain circumstances, this is going to be helpful. Rift Bolt. It's a sorcery for 2 and a mountain. Rift Bolt deals 3 damage to any target. The suspend costs, or suspend 1 and a mountain. Rather than cast this card from your hand, you may pay a mountain and exile it with a time counter. At the beginning of your upkeep, remove a time counter. When the last one is removed, cast it without paying its mana cost. So if you do the suspend cost and target a creature, your opponent's potentially going to know your next turn this is going to deal 3 damage to whatever creature, so your opponent might be able to like phase the creature out or return the creature to their hand to then make this be targeting something that's no longer there. So for the suspend cost, I mean, not so much on targeting a creature, but otherwise, it's a decent card, it seems like. Lightning Axe. It's an instant for a mountain. As additional cost to cast a spell, discard a card or pay 5. Lightning Axe deals 5 damage to target creature. Kind of interesting how some cards have that, like, additional cost, of, like, oh, it looks cheap up here, but then, you're discarding a card or paying more mana. And 5 damage, it might not say destroy target creature, but, it's 5 damage, so it's more than something like Lightning Bolt or Shock or the Rift Bolt from earlier in this pack. Stormfront Riders. It's a 4/3 creature, a human soldier for 4 in the plains. Has flying. When Stormfront Rider enters the battlefield, return 2 creatures you control to their owner's hand. When Stormfront Rider or another creature is returned to your hand from the battlefield, create a 1/1 creature token. So even though it's mildly annoying to have to replay the creatures that this is returning to your hand, you're then creating 1/1 soldier tokens in response to those being returned. So kind of a trade-off. You're, getting more bodies on the battlefield, even if they're only 1/1s. And then you can, if any of the creatures have an enter the battlefield trigger, you can then have it trigger a second time. So I guess that's an interesting workaround to get more triggers. Conflatigate. It's a sorcery for X, X, and a mound. So, where it's X is 2 times, let's say you had 11 mana, you'd have to pay the mound, of course, and then 10 divided by 2 is 5, so X would be 5. Pay 5 for X, 5 for X, the second X, and the mound. Conflagrate deals X damage divided as you choose among any number of targets. So, I mean, that's kind of why you're doing X twice, is because you're doing X damage, but you're doing it to more than one target. So it kind of wants to make it slightly more difficult not to have, like, 50 damage or like something insane to like a bunch of targets. Is, well, cut that in half, it'll be 25 instead. Has a flashback of 2 mounds, discard X cards. And the reminder text says you may cast this card from your graveyard for its flashback cost, then exile it. So, I mean, kind of cool that you could play that twice. The downside is when you're doing the flashback, you're discarding cards to deal damage. So, if you don't have a lot of cards in your hand, it's really not as great the second time around. Then we have a split card. One side says Boom. It's a sorcery for 1 and a mound. Destroy target land you control and target land you don't control. And then the other side is Bust. It's a sorcery for 5 and a mound. Destroy all lands. So either way, you're destroying lands, but for 2 mana, it's 1 of yours and 1 of your opponent's. For 6, it's all lands. Although I feel like in a recent set, they did have some lands that were indestructible, so the like destroy aspect would not destroy the indestructible lands. Next we have Beast Whisperer. It's a 2/3 creature, an elf druid for 2 and 2 forest. Whenever you cast a creature spell, draw a card. So, kind of nice that, in addition to being, a body on the battlefield, it can draw you cards. And then we have the token. It's a 6/1 token creature, an insect for Shroud. So, I'm kind of curious what card makes this 6/1 insect with Shroud, but kind of cool. So still have 4 more packs. I'm gonna do the second Time Spiral Remastered and then save the other 3 for later. Or C, it's a sorcery for 3 in the island. Scry 4, then draw 2 cards. So, I mean, that's, pretty good that you could, look at 4 cards, decide top or bottom for all of them. Then, okay, I'm drawing 2 cards, so you know right off the bat what you're getting, unless you, for whatever reason, put all 4 cards on the bottom of the library. So yeah, definitely decent card. Primal Plasma. It's a star creature elemental shapeshifter for 3 in an island. As Primal Plasma enters the battlefield, it becomes your choice of a 3/3 creature, a 2/2 creature with flying, or a 1/6 creature with defender. So obviously, you have a couple of different choices, but it would really depend on what your opponent's playing. You know, if your opponent has a deck with a lot of flyers, you'd probably choose the 2/2 flyer. If your opponent has a lot of big creatures, maybe the 1/6 defender might be beneficial, or maybe not. You know, it'd just be dependent on the information you have at the time, what you think would be best for that creature to become. We have Grinning Ignis. It's a 2/2 creature, an elemental for 2 and a mountain. You can pay a mountain, return Grinning Ignis to its owner's hand, add, and it has the like diamond shaped mana symbol. So 2 generic mana and a mountain. Activate this ability only anytime you could cast a sorcery. So kind of interesting that you pay a mountain to get 2 generic mana and a mountain. So the mountain that you're getting is really offset the mountain that you're casting to, or paying for the ability. So returning this to your hand is more or less tapping a soul ring. Kind of interesting. I don't know. Urborg Siphon Mage. It's a 2/2 creature, a human shapeshifter for 2 in a swamp. You can pay 2 a swamp, tap, discard a card. Each other player loses 2 life. You gain life equal to the life lost this way. So, I mean, 3 mana, tapping a creature and discarding a card. Yes, discarding a card might be a drawback, but you're doing 2. You're making your opponents lose 2 life, and then you're gaining that much life. So for one opponent, you deal 2 damage, you get 2 life. You have 2 opponents, you're doing 4 damage between the 2 opponents and gaining 4 life. Like 3 opponents, 6 damage spread across 3 people, and you're gaining 6 life. It exponentially gets better the more opponents you have, for that inconvenience of discarding a card and a little bit of mana. Octabi Drake. It's a 2/1 creature, a drake for a forest. It's flying in haste. Echo 1 and 2 forest. The reminder text says at the beginning of your upkeep, if this came under your control since the beginning of your last upkeep, sacrifice it unless you pay its echo cost. So it's been a while since I've seen a lot of drakes, but a lot of the ones that I remember were more leaning towards blue. But this one happens to be green. It's fairly cheap to play it out, but it's only a 2/1 flying haste. So the value's about what I'd expect, maybe a tiny bit better, but not like overpowered. The drawback is that it has the echo cost, so you're potentially paying 3 to keep a 2/1 flyer on the battlefield. You know, you get a cheap flyer, has haste, so it can attack the first turn. Then you're saying, is it worth paying 3 to keep it on the battlefield or not? Emerald Scout. It's a 2/1 creature, Kithern Rebel Scout for 1 in the plains. You can pay 4 and tap. Search your library for a Rebel permanent card with converted mana cost 3 or less. Put it onto the battlefield, then shuffle your library. So kind of interesting that it's a tutor that's on a permanent, and you know you're not sacrificing it like, I don't know, Fabled Passage or Evolving Wilds, which are lands that are basically searching for basic lands. So I mean, you could search, you could pay slash tap using this guy however many times you want to search for rebels. Obviously, it's mana cost 3 or less, so there's only going to be so many things you can search for before you're just searching, not finding anything, and shuffling. I mean, the ability to shuffle your deck, 4 mana might seem like a lot, but it might somehow be beneficial to top deck something different. So, like, if you scry, and then actually, scry, you could choose top or bottom, but if you somehow know what the top card of your library is, you don't like it, you use this to shuffle your library and potentially get something else on top. Once you're out of Rebels to tutor 4, I guess that's about the only thing that might be beneficial. But kind of interesting. Looter Ilkor. It's a 1/1 creature, a core rogue for 1 in an island. Has shadow. This creature can block or be blocked by only creatures with shadow. Whenever Looter Ilkor deals damage to an opponent, draw a card, then discard a card. I think this is this same guy with shadow as the previous pack. Ilkor Slick. It's a sorcery for 2 in a swamp. Target creature gets -3/-3 until end of turn. Cycling 2. Tap 2, discard this card, draw a card. The mana's cost is 3 in a swamp. Reminder text says, if you discard this card, discard it into exile. When you do, cast it for its mana's cost or play it into the graveyard. So I guess you could cycle it and play it again later from the sounds of it. So I'm gonna finish the rest of this pack with the other 3 packs, but hopefully you found some value in this. Thanks and have a good day.